So, Tom, it's your episode.
Oh, good God.
How nervous are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
I give it a 6 or a 7.
Oh, don't be silly.
A strong 6.
It's just a chat with two mates. So we're on episode 8 now.
Right, good.
So this is quite. We've done a few episodes now, and I think like the feedback's been pretty good. Before we kick into it, though, there is a question from a viewer.
Oh, good. Yeah,
it's good. So
let's discuss.
His name is Chris, and I went to school with Chris actually. And he's asked me a few questions, but it's interesting actually. So it's about Google and Google tax, which is something we referred to in episode 1.
Yeah.
So he said costs. Mm-hmm. Never heard of Google tax, and those numbers are incredible. Be interested to hear more open and honest numbers about UK businesses. Could be anonymous or examples of sensitive information. So he's basically saying there, like, he's and this is kind of, I've picked that question, he asked 3, I've picked that one because I felt like, just to be transparent with people listening in, like, the episodes of these podcasts, they're not about our businesses.
No.
So they're about the themes and concepts of British business. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to eventually have guests on where we interview them and talk to them about their businesses. And then it's up to the guest how specific they are. So like today, we're having a bit of a chat with Tom about his business, but more not about the actual business, about his entrepreneurial journey. Yeah. So it's like I went on D2C Diaries, which is an econ podcast, and they ask you to intro yourself and tell us your origin story.
Yeah, I like that origin
which
story.
Which I thought, so that is stolen.
Oh God, right, yeah.
So we're going to swipe and deploy that one. So the concept of like an origin story, I think, is like a really good way of describing it. But to go back to Chris's question, like, I think we obviously can't go into like mega detail about bits and pieces, so I just think it's important to mention that. But like the Google tax element of his question, it's not an actual Google tax.
No.
But it feels like a tax.
Yeah.
And I suppose the point is, and what I would just touch on to kind of cover the point of him asking about is, a lot of people don't realise how much cost is involved in business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like how expensive it is to advertise and appear on Google, the costs involved, how expensive it is to have a shop on a high street.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's that disconnect, and from business owners that are listening, like, being transparent with your employees and staff and trying to be open with them with information wherever possible, it helps break that barrier down. So I think Chris's point there is, it's quite interesting that he's jumped on that and goes, oh, can I know more? Well, we can't divulge too much into our businesses, but I think from a business owner's perspective, in reference to Chris's, you can be more transparent with your staff.
Yeah.
To help educate and support them a little bit more.
Agree with that. We do that in our business. Only probably recently, in the last sort of 3 years, I've shared some of the financial information with them to how much money we are spending on advertising, how much the rent or the rates are within the building we're in, or even
labour cost percentage.
Labour costs, all the way down to the unit cost per order, like what the costs involved, the shipping bills that we face.
Yeah, the cost to get an order out the door.
Yeah, they can't believe it. They're like, are you joking? Like, no, genuinely, those are the costs.
Yeah, and I think there's a real disconnect in the UK in businesses of talking about costs, and some businesses, if you're in a sales environment, or like, I think it's more common in like big corporate where you're working. Say, I obviously got experience in McDonald's, but like McDonald's, like Subway, they share the store P&L, and it's quite open with the management and then the team, and they know what they've got to work towards.
Transparent.
I just thought it was interesting that Chris had picked up on that and he wanted to know more. We can't say too much more, but for business owners listening, be transparent with your employees. I think it's a massive helper.
And all I'd say on Chris's point there about wanting to know more about the Google tax, which is obviously what we're talking as is marketing spend. The only reason I'm spending that sort of money and you're spending similar sums of money is because the return on that advertising spend is there, which enables us to spend that sort of money in a given period.
Definitely. So today's episode is Tom's story.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT, friend of the podcast.
They helped us out. Yeah.
They helped us out with some questions for Tom.
Oh, good.
Having listened to the ChatGPT has consumed the transcript from the previous episode, so it knows who you are and what you are.
Yeah, okay.
So it's got some questions for you, which I'm going to ask you.
Fantastic, fire away.
And then I've obviously tweaked it as well and added my own little flair. So the hard ones are ChatGPT, the easy ones are from me.
You're the more generous.
So it's titled From Side Hustle to an 8-Figure Business, which I think like that's how a lot of businesses start out, as side hustles. But maybe if you could just intro us into like the early days, like what was school and college like for you? Were you quite an academic person? Like, what are you like personally with that?
Yeah, no, not at all. Went to a school over in Macclesfield. Was not very academic at all. Really struggled at school, to be fair.
Are you dyslexic?
I am. Yeah. And that I remember being in primary school, in Marple, and I decided just like grammar, English language, everything like that. I just could not understand it, and at that age, didn't know what was wrong with me. Didn't understand why I could not get to grips with spelling or reading or anything like that. And I was probably about 8 years old.
Do you think like there's a correlation between dyslexia and, because dyslexia, because I'm dyslexic as well, like that different perspective on things? Do you think there's a correlation between that and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think there must be a strong correlation between dyslexia and entrepreneurship, because I think what it did for me, one, it made me more resilient, because people used to take the piss out of me at school, thinking that I was thick, and it just made me more resilient, thinking, no, I'm gonna prove them wrong.
That underdog mentality.
Nothing wrong with that, because that's where you need to come from, really, I believe. And it makes you think differently. And I did then gravitate to like maths. I was reasonably good with numbers, so that was like my safe haven. I thought, right, focus my time and energy in on that, where I can achieve reasonable results. By no means like, A-star results, but reasonable results in that, when I'm getting D's and E's in English and other things. So.
I mean, I left school with 4 GCSEs.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was a car crash.
Yeah. Sometimes, but you look at that and you think, actually, ultimately, school does matter. It does, but I think, like, especially when I was at school, we're all getting taught the same thing, and we all learn differently.
So you went to primary, secondary, Macclesfield, Marple. We're obviously based near Manchester, which is why those locations are what they are. You then went off to university. What did you study at uni?
Accounting and finance at uni. But the way that came about, I finished sixth form at school, and my dad was like, right, university, or are you going straight into work? I didn't really know. I was like, I thought, right, route to get ahead here, just get stuck into work. Obviously, off the back of that, where I felt maths was more of a strong suit. And business always interested me. I was always interested watching Dragon's Den when that first came out. My father is in business as well. And living with him, listening to all the conversations around the dinner table, all it was business. That's all we talked. It's like a boardroom. It's quite infectious, isn't it? The bug of entrepreneurship. Like Morgan, I'm sure won't mind me saying, his parents are entrepreneurs. Like they're business owners. Your parents were business owners. Like I think it's quite infectious. It's natural. 100%. And that's what I was fed at an early age, and that's what I was really interested in. Just wanting to know more and more, and understanding problems.
What's the age gap between you and your brother? Just remind me.
Just 2 years, bang on 2 years. Yeah.
And you were born in late 80s.
Yeah, 87 for me, 85 for James.
So I was looking actually at the demographics of the podcast last night, and it's quite a male orientated audience at the moment, and I'd like to get more women listening. That's something I'd like to try and do, and we'll maybe get some female guests on in the future.
Absolutely.
But the age demographic's quite interesting, because I suppose I kind of expected it, because initially we've pushed people that we know to the podcast, which typically is our age bracket. So the age bracket is representative of us.
Of our age.
But as the podcast develops, it'll be interesting to see if that demographic changes and alters.
Yeah.
So school, college, you went off to uni, you did finance and business. What was your first part-time job, out of interest?
Yeah, it was working in a pub. Just started off collecting glasses, things like that. Then when I was just about old enough, going behind the bar, pulling pints, opening up, for the early doors drinkers and things like that.
That's great. Like charisma building,
social skills,
100%. Yeah,
because you get to speak to all these individuals that are coming in, straight from work.
Yeah.
And when it's you and two others in the pub, sometimes they want to have a conversation, so you need to read the room and think, right, and get on their wavelength and have a chat with them. So I think that is character building.
I think working in hospitality at a young age, it makes or breaks you. Like, I'm a natural introvert, so I really struggled, but I worked in hospitality. I worked in an Italian restaurant. I worked in pubs. Like, it's great experience. So then you're off at college and you went to uni doing finance and accounting. Yeah. Part-time job in a pub. Did you have a job? Where did you go to uni?
I went to Leeds Met, but just before I went to Leeds Met, I'd finished up at sixth form. Yeah. And I went straight into work at that point. So I went to work for a accounting finance firm in Macclesfield.
Was that planned, or was that not interested in uni? I'm going to go and work.
Originally it was planned. It was like, look, I want to get ahead, want to earn some money.
Do 12 months.
Accounting and finance. That's my sort of go-to. Let's get stuck into it. I was fortunate enough to land like an apprenticeship there, really. So started to do the AAT, which is Association of Accounting Technicians, with them. Great firm, small to medium-sized firm. Also learnt a lot while I was there, because I could see in that industry of accounting and finance, I think there was about 80 staff, and we're all in this one big like open plan office. And I'm looking around, I'm like, at that age, I'm like, trying to find my feet. Where do I fit in? I'm seeing some of the departments that I worked in. I was like, I do not want to do that for the rest of my life, because ultimately, some functions in accountancy they're just repetitive and boring. And there was one particular partner there, a guy called Andrew Earnshaw.
Will he mind you calling him out?
No, because he inspired me, to be fair.
Right, okay, yeah.
So I saw him, I was like, he's got this really sharp suit on, driving a nice car, looks the part, and he's going out doing all the networking, bringing the customers, recruiting the customers for the accountancy firm. Equally did probably some, accountancy work, but I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be doing all the number crunching and the trial balances and all that sort of stuff, or preparing like accounts for small, medium-sized businesses. I want to be doing like the sexy looking stuff that he was doing. Ultimately lasted. I was there for about 16 months. And then I could see a lot of my friends that had gone to university straight from school. I was like, oh my God, they're having a great time.
Having a whale of a time.
I'm only young once, and I was like, oh, have I made the wrong decision here? So after some consideration, I was like, right, I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna go to university, and I'm gonna do accounting and finance at university.
Right, yeah. So you went to uni when you were 20, basically. Because you will have missed 2 Septembers, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you did a year and a half at the firm, and then you went in the intake the 2 years after you would have, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So I went to Leeds Met University. Fantastic university. Loved it.
Play a lot of sport as well.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't carry that through when I was at university, though. I sort of got
too much drinking
in the hustle and bustle of the social aspects of it, which I think is great, and it teaches you different life skills again. Because I was living first off in halls of residence, like most people do, and then second and third year you go into like shared accommodation. You rent a house.
That's a massive life skill. Yeah,
it teaches you independence. You know how to cook. Well, you shouldn't know how to cook for yourself, but cooking, cleaning,
cash flow for students.
That is a challenge. Let me tell you that. When the student loan drops, everyone's like a millionaire. Everyone's out just spraying the money. Genuinely. You should see it. And then give it like 2-3 weeks later, everyone's absolutely skinned.
That was 100% me at uni. I'd be like eating I'd just have one pasty a day. I'd be starving.
Yeah, you starve yourself. Yeah.
It got to the point with me at uni where my mum was like, it was like a bit of a welfare thing. So we had this card that she would give to me, and she'd top it up, and I could only redeem it in the food shop.
Yeah,
so she knew I was getting food money, because whenever she sent me money, I'd just go out on the beers.
Yeah, of course.
With the guys.
Like we all do. Yeah. All did.
Great uni days.
Yeah, fantastic time. Great life experience.
Yeah. Did you work in a bar while you were at uni then as well?
No, I mean, I was fortunate because I'd worked for that year. I'd saved some money up. Yeah. And then in the summers and the breaks, I'd go back and I'd get like work in a warehouse at home.
Right.
and just earn money that way, basically. So when I went back to university, I was fortunate enough to, I had enough money that I could see myself through for the periods, and obviously support the student loans and things like that.
So were you in Sheffield for Leeds for 3 years?
3 years, yeah, fantastic place. I mean, if I wasn't in Manchester, I'd be there. It was great.
Yeah.
Great
So you did
place.
accounting and finance, and then was there a temptation to go and become qualified? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, whilst I was at university, I was like, your first year, a bit of a blur, to be honest. It's mostly partying. You think you need to get a certain percentage to pass, which I didn't. I had to resit in the summer to get, I think it's 40%, and I was like, I don't know, like 28 or something, and then I got over the 40. Second year, more serious. Third year, that's where I think it's weighted 75%.
Yeah.
Really knuckled down in that period. But then, the future lies ahead of you, thinking, what am I going to do when I finish university?
Yeah.
I've got, sort of 18 months of working in practice under my belt. I've got a degree. I actually came out with a 2. I was fractionally off, like 1 or 2% off a first as well, which is unheard of, really, I suppose, for me. But I managed to scrape it.
It's funny how at the time that felt probably quite big and frustrating. But how insignificant and how it doesn't matter at all. Man.
No, it does not matter at all. Not one jot.
Mad.
No. I mean, I've carried through the accountancy, finance skills I've learned into business.
Well, the qualifications is my point. It's
yeah.
Like, I think in entrepreneurship, like a lot of people are underqualified.
Yeah.
They enter their business and they become experts over time.
Yeah, through time served, because they didn't fit in the academic.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between an entrepreneur or an employer and an employee.
Yeah.
Is the employee is obsessed with certification and like crediting themselves with what they can do, whereas the entrepreneur is someone that is willing to prove it.
Yeah. Like,
demonstrate.
I couldn't care less. Like, if I would have carried on from school with the AAT, I would have been, if I wanted to be, a chartered accountant within sort of 3 years.
Yeah.
But I chose, actually, I want to try something different, went to university, so sidestepped that, spent 3 years doing it.
So when was your first moment of entrepreneurship? When was the first thing you bought something to sell it and it was intentional?
So, good question. So when I was at university and I was coming to the end of it, my brother had been working for a guy called Les Harding. Yeah. And he was an old Adidas rep, and he was finished up with Adidas, and he was buying and selling the clearance items from Adidas. And then back then, when the high street was strong, he was selling them back into shops in the high street, then started to put a little bit on eBay. And that's when my brother started working with him. I think they worked together for about 6 months, and then they formed a business together. So this is me at university watching.
So you're in your like third year.
Yeah, second. I think it was a second year, midway through second year they were doing this, and I was like, bloody hell, they're doing all right.
So James left uni. He went to.
No, he didn't. He had a different path. He finished at school GCSE.
Yeah.
They actually wouldn't let him back in to sixth form where we were. He was told, you can't come back. That's it. Not through the fact that he was misbehaving, because he wasn't. It was more of an academic thing. He was very similar to me.
Like me. Yeah.
He then went to a college in Marple.
Yeah.
And then went that route, went working at Decathlon in Stockport.
Yeah, so he went into the workplace.
Yeah, and then he went working with Les and then formed a business with Les.
So you saw James having a bit of kind of stuff going on. You're at uni and you're going, what is he doing over there?
Yeah, 100%. I could see him doing all right. I was thinking, this is interesting. They're buying end-of-line products, like obviously clearance products. At that point, they were sticking it on eBay.
Yeah.
And the products that they were buying were, in my eyes at the time, they were obscure. They were like running spikes, weightlifting suits, wrestling suits were really big for them, walking poles. And I was like...
Niches.
Very much niches, yeah. And I was like, thinking, there's obviously something in this, because they're doing quite well. When I'm sat watching from the sidelines. And I'm thinking, that could be something I could get into it, but I'd do something that's more suited to myself, where I'd have a bit more knowledge about. And I thought, how often do you buy a pair of running spikes versus a pair of trainers or jogging bottoms or hoodies? I thought that's the area I can see myself getting into if I do go down that route. But first off the bat out of university, I tried to get a job in accounting and finance, and it was job market was tough at that time. I think this was 2009, probably by about then. only job I got offered was for a really small firm in Bury. I'd have to relocate, and I thought I don't really want to move away from like family and friends locally to live in Bury. So no problem with Bury at all, but it's just something different for me. I thought, no, I don't want to do that. So started working in a warehouse, and I was again watching James, and I was like, look, I think I could get into this game here, and go down the route of the more branded fashion everyday items. So James and Les kindly said, oh, there's like box of returns here, like just odds and sods that ones and twos. Yeah, literally. I remember this now. I think there was like there was 200 probably items, 100, 200 items in this box.
Yeah.
And they were like, just give us £1 a piece, give us 200 quid for it. There was stuff that came in clearance parcels where it was only one, or it had no packaging, probably B grade items that weren't perfect to resell. But I thought, I'll have a go at that. Give them the 200 quid. Took pictures of it in, on the kitchen table or whatever. And then, banged it on eBay, basically. And that was the first point of like intentionally entering into the, I suppose, what is e-commerce now, market. And then I remember the first few sales that came in, I couldn't believe it. I was like, someone's actually bought this from me and I've made a profit on it. Like, it was like the dopamine hit you got was unbelievable. And that's when I thought, this must have legs. This must have legs. I managed to sell through most of those items. I recall one of them being a Nike bangle, like a bracelet, that had certain slogans around it. And little did James and Les know, obviously I bought them for like £1 a piece. They were like these collectible things, and there must have been about 80 in the box.
Does James know about this now?
Oh, he will do now, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, £1 a piece, and I was banging them out. I just did a bit of research, like what are these going for? I was thinking I might get them £2.50, £3, whatever. They were going for like 12 quid a go. So I was like, £1 into £12.
That's a good gross profit.
Yeah, times by like 80 units, I'm like, I'll have a bit of this.
Yeah.
And people were buying 5, 10s off me in a go because they were collectible. So,
and you were going to your brother and going, yeah, no, I'll get rid of these. Oh, these are a nightmare to sell.
Yeah.
Proper Del boy.
Yeah,
no, James, these are a nightmare. I'm basically having to give away half of them.
I'm losing
honestly.
on them. I'm losing on them. I was like, literally back at him like,
lucky to get a quid.
Yeah, lucky to get the money back from him. And I was back at him like a week later, like, what else have you got? What else, can I buy that's, that you're not interested in? You've got no interest in.
That's a great little outlet for his business there at the time. Like, A, giving you a bit of an opportunity, and B, like an outlet for that slow moving units of stock and dead cash, really.
Yeah. Because they were at a scale where listing one unit, it wasn't worth the time.
So that first year, what did you do in turnover?
God. So set up as a sole trader. And I think the first year of turnover was probably about 80,000 quid. It was just slightly over the VAT threshold.
Did you have to go VAT registered?
I did,
first?
Yeah.
It's good in a way that you just went for that.
Yeah.
Went for VAT instead of trying to like stay under it.
It's
just go for it.
I knew I wanted. When I could see it, let's say, working slightly, I was like, this is it. So let's set a limited company up, went VAT registered.
So what year was that?
I reckon that's 2009.
Wow. Yeah, so quite a while ago. And then, so you went from that, and then what did you do in year 2?
I think it was close to 200. It was like 180, 200k.
And you were just on your own at that stage?
Just literally on my own.
Yeah. No premises?
No premises. So what I did for, again, I was still working actually at the time. I was working part-time. I was doing bits for James and Les in their business, helping book products in for them. Because where the units were where we traded from, big industrial estate, he was in a unit at the back. I was in an outsourced fulfillment warehouse in the front. So I'd outsourced all my picking and packing because...
So you got a firm doing that?
I was like, I can't do that and have a job at the same time and manage the customer service and manage the listing and manage the buying and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I outsourced the fulfillment. I was working in the fulfillment warehouse for them as well, picking and packing other like retailers' orders. I was then doing bits for James and Les, booking stock in for them. And then...
How many hours were you working a week, roughly?
Oh, yeah. A lot. At 80 hours, it was like relentless because it was like, this is what I want to do.
But you did what was necessary.
Yeah, that's including working for James and Les, but I was just doing my bits. Lunchtime, straight on the computer, listing new products. In the evening, taking pictures of all the new products.
Yeah.
And just trying to gather as much
I think
momentum.
in the early days, you have to grind like that.
Yeah, there's no way.
If you're gonna carve something out of bedrock and make it your own, like you've got to go for that. So, what was it? What you were doing about 200 grand a year, and then you when did you take on your first employee?
Yeah, so before taking the first employee on, because I was still working part time in the pick and pack warehouse and bits on the side for James and Les. I was able to just commit full time because up until that point I took no money out of the business, so I got it to like 200k, didn't earn a penny out of it because I was just rolling all the sales and all the profit that I was making back into grow the business, buy more stock, sell more stock. So I was able to give that up, knowing that I can afford to pay myself the equivalent of what I was earning doing those two sort of part time jobs. Then the next challenge would be. There's just so much I was doing because I was then like, I can really invest my time, grow this business. I was on the road in my little Vauxhall Corsa, driving to all these clearance warehouses, buying bin liners and boxes full of products that I could take back.
So you basically, you had the model that you were working with James on.
Yeah.
And then you rolled that out to other retailers.
Yeah. All the wholesale suppliers, yeah.
Right, yeah. So you were going and asking them, what dodgy shit have you got?
Can I buy like 6 of them? Can I buy 12 of them?
I'll take your triple XLs.
Yeah, and they were just thinking,
what is
this guy doing? He's turned up in this Vauxhall Corsa, clapped out. I know what I was at the 20, really early 20s, 23 maybe, something at that time. Like, I was fortunate enough that James and Les were quite well known within the clearance industry. I could piggyback off the back. Sometimes Les would take me and introduce me. Say, this is Tom. He's all right. He's a good lad. Like, look after him.
Yeah.
So I did with some suppliers have an in with them. But therefore, they had to take me seriously for the fact that I was trying to buy, can I have 6 of them T-shirts or, 12 of those pairs of shoes to sell, please?
What was cash flow like in the early days?
Well, cash flow wasn't necessarily too much of a problem when I had the two sort of, side incomes coming in when I was working part-time, because I wasn't taking any cash out of the business, so I could afford just to let it sit there and continue to grow. When I was obviously having to draw from the business, it was like, actually, like there's a different level of complexity here. But yeah, it was all just buy, sell. Didn't borrow any money to sort of help cash flow. It was all self-funded from the sales of the business. So when sales were good, cash grew. When sales were slow, obviously it stagnated, and obviously me drawing a wage out of it and paying for the third-party warehouse took from that. But the next challenge was, I know I need to get to another level. I need to get from 200 to 350, 400. I'm not going to be able to do it on my own. And that's when I took on the first employee, and I was like, oh my God, like that's a responsibility in itself, because you just don't know, am I going to have enough work for them to do? Which I'm pretty sure I did at that time, but it's going from flying solo to working with someone else and having the responsibility.
Who was that first employee?
It was actually family theme. It was my stepsister.
Right, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Catherine.
What was that like?
Yeah, good. Like, she's really intelligent, dead easy to work with. She came on board, working together. And yeah, she helped.
Full-time?
Full-time straight away, yeah. Yeah, she'd finished university. She was unsure what to do from that. And I was like, look, just come and work with me. Like, give it a go. Like, see where, help me sort of push the business on. It was good working with her.
Was there any chat at that time about partnering with her?
Yeah. That was being sort of like talked about in the background, I suppose, in a way. But I couldn't really see that happening, because I knew what I wanted from the business. I'd been grinding at it for 2 years.
You had your vision.
I had my vision, yeah. And I thought, like, look, I want to follow this through here. Like, it sort of independently.
Which is fine.
Which was fine. Yeah, it was absolutely fine.
What were you paying her? Just because obviously time moves on. What was the wage?
It was
£5 an hour.
Yeah, it was something like £5.25 an hour.
That's mad, isn't it? When you think about minimum wage now being 12, 21 or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, incredible. incredible, isn't it? But I mean, I wasn't earning too dissimilar from that. I was like £5.50 an hour.
Yeah,
I was taking
probably
for
your
myself.
hourly rate will have been less.
Yeah.
Because of the hours that you were putting in.
Yeah,
which is like
100%.
that's the theme with entrepreneurship. So you took her on. You were doing what turnover roughly?
Yeah, a couple $100,000 at that point.
Yeah, VAT registered.
Yeah.
No physical premises, still drop shipping. So still using a third party.
Third party to fulfill my orders.
And you were leaving as much cash in the business as you possibly could.
Yeah, 100%.
And how long was it before, like, just to give us a bit of a perspective, how long did you do that for before you joined and partnered with your brother?
So it was 7 years. So
you did 7 years on your own?
Yeah.
So what about, how many employees did you end up with in that business?
Because I'd outsourced the distribution,
Yeah.
it was me and 2 other employees.
Right, yeah. So
Catherine and then Claire.
So Claire, who currently works for you now as your buyer.
Yeah, she's working for us today.
Yeah,
as a buyer.
so there's 3 of you in the business. And what did you scale that to in terms of revenue before you merged with
so we scaled that to just over $1 million, like 1.1, almost 1.2 million.
That's incredible. In how long? 6-7 years?
Yeah.
That's really interesting because of the time that it takes to hit that first million.
Yeah, it's a very good point because it took us that long to hit there because there was that many bumps in the road.
Yeah.
And because we were starting literally from zero, from nothing, I had like 200 quid when I bought that first box of bits off James and Les to sell. I had no outside of finance I could call upon to help scale the business. It was just all organically, which is why, it took 7 years.
And that's like that kind of like exponential growth where you then go from $1 million to 2 million in probably half the time or a third of the time. It's really interesting that. But it's for people listening, that kind of like the early days, like your story of not really fitting in at school, in the sense of like the environment not being right for you.
Yeah.
Like normal people or non-entrepreneurs, employees, they operate great in an academic setting.
Yeah.
But then you take them and put them into an environment where they've got to pivot and weave, do unrealistic things, working 80 hours a week, do what is necessary, not pay themselves.
Yeah.
Most people are not willing to do that.
No.
Which is what sets aside. And that's why I think it's really interesting hearing your early day story and that early entrepreneurial experience of like just growing and scaling. What I think would be really good as well, because we're probably going to have to segment this and put it into a second episode. And we'll probably talk a bit more about a bit more of the detail of in between, and then the latter stages of when you join forces with your brother, James, because that's really exciting as well, like the early days of what became Avenue 85, because his side, I'd love to get your brother on as well and chat with him about, because was it Les Sportif or Les...
Yeah, Les Sports, Les Sports,
that was their original company.
Correct, yeah.
Is that the company name for Avenue 85?
Yeah, just a name change when about a year before we'd merged,
you
changed it to Avenue 85,
So like there's his story and then you guys merged, but what would you say were the biggest challenges that you faced in the early days? Like the really early days. What was it? Confidence? What were the things?
Yeah, 100% confidence, because I'd obviously no experience in business whatsoever, because I just got into the game, and for me it was like trying to develop the relationships. The biggest thing for me at that stage was the supply of product, because I knew I had some channels to sell, which were basically just the marketplaces, eBay and Amazon and such. It was the supply or continuity of supply of products at the right price where I could make a profit on. Because I'd outsourced the distribution, so I knew that would work without me having to focus too heavily on it. So it wasn't draining my time as such. So it was building relationships, which I think is a key part in any business, is building the relationships with your suppliers.
Your network is your net worth.
100%. I was fortunate enough to build some good relationships with. There was probably at that time 2 or 3 big
that you really doubled down.
With big clearance houses in the UK, and there was one at a company that I did most of the trade with, a guy called John Halliwell. He looked after me. He was probably at that time early 50s, and I'm some.
What kind of turnover was he doing?
Oh, their business got bought out by JD. They were doing 30, 40 million, something like that.
So do you think his little personal relationship with you and seeing you, your little course, do you think he was inspired a little bit, or like looked at himself and went, I like this Tom. Like he's making a go at it.
No, I think so. I think he saw me, because I kept just ringing, emailing him, just trying to be like, look, can I come in? They were in Warrington. I'll come down whenever suitable for you. I just want to look at any odds and ends that you've got that, you know, I can buy. I can clear your problems, basically. If you've got like little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Eventually, after about 20 emails and phone calls, he succumbed, and he was like, right, come down. And literally sat down with him in his office, had a cup of tea with him and a good chat. And I think then we just connected with each other.
Yeah.
He's such a nice guy. Like,
so he gave you that time?
Yeah, he did, yeah. And normally, he said to me, because I've, you know, worked with John for many, many years, like, he was like, normally, they get phone call after phone call off people.
All the time.
Yeah. Can we buy this? Can we buy that? And like promising them the world and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, luckily, he said, right, come in, and we got going. Great relationship. And he really sort of put his arm around us, well, around me, and looked after me from an early stage. Because in that game, you definitely can get taken advantage of, you know, as a small business. Yeah. And I was young, inexperienced.
How old were you when you had that relationship?
So, like 22, 23, something like that. You know? Yeah. And he'd been in the game for 30 years.
I've been speaking to two entrepreneurs up in Glasgow. They're running a business called Perfect.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a sneaker brand. They're doing some good numbers. They're 21, 22.
Really? Yeah.
And it's like...
it's exciting, though, isn't it?
Exciting.
In at that age, yeah. You know what the possibilities are.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. If there's any questions that the listeners have got for Tom about his journey in those early days, stick them in the comments, because what we're going to do is we're going to pause the story now, and then we won't be filming for a couple of weeks yet, and then we'll pick up and maybe dovetail on some questions, or maybe take the questions and answer them in future episodes. So if there's any things that come to mind when this episode comes out, but the next episode you listen to or watch us on will be part 2 of this, and I'll have a little bit of think of like other things that we can cover off. But I think those early days, it's really exciting, because that's where entrepreneurship gets kind of formed and moulded, and the type of business owner you become. And like your calculation of risk, and like you will have, I'm sure, taken on styles and products that didn't work, and you literally had to put them in skips to get rid of them and stuff like that, because it's just like, well, this ain't working, I've failed. This wrestling suit in pink doesn't work.
What have I done? Or I started importing products and we can cover that.
That's another whole kettle of fish. So I think your story is really interesting. I think we maybe can segment it into 2 or 3 episodes and just drip it out.
No, definitely.
But yeah, well, that's episode... What episode was that? That was episode 8. Yeah, it's been good, like, so far, the podcast. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have.
I've really enjoyed it. It's great to do this sort of thing.
It's good for us to get a bit of time together. I've learned stuff about you there that I didn't know. Like, there was some really interesting bits. And hopefully the listeners, people that are following the podcast, have enjoyed that as well. So if you could do us a favour... comment some questions if there's any questions for Tom, and we'll answer them further down the line on future episodes, because it won't quite work for the part 2 of his story. But ask us some questions. If you can comment and support the podcast by liking and making sure you're subscribed on YouTube, that really helps the algorithm. Same on Spotify. Please make sure you've left us a review on Spotify if you listen on Spotify. And if you've got any feedback, don't be shy. We take feedback on the chin. Let us know. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.